Muted.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michelle with ODE, and I just wanted to let you know we'll start in just a few seconds. We're just giving a few minutes for people to sign on. I see that a few are not on their phones yet, so it'll just take them a few seconds. So we'll be right with you.
Hi, everybody. This is Rick Sherman. I'm the Farm to School School Garden Coordinator with Oregon Department of Education. I will be walking you through this training today, and Michelle will be, go ahead and turn the next one. Michelle will be moderating and working the keyboards for me. So that is us, and Michelle looks just like that. Okay. I'll just point it, yeah. All right, so all of the information that we will talk about today will be on that website. You don't really need to do a lot of notes and things. As soon as we can, as soon as we're able to process this, we will render this recording and put it on the website. And again, it's www.ode.state.or.us/go/farm to school gardens, but you could just go to the Child Nutrition Program website, and on the main page you can go to Farm to School, or if you don't even remember that, you can just Google Oregon Farm to School and it's the first link. And so when you get there, it will be like the next page here. It'll be the Grants and Funding Opportunities link. So you click on that, and then you will go right to everything you need to know about the grant. And we update this page. I'm the keeper of this page, so I update it on a daily, weekly, as needed basis. So keep referring back to it as things are updated. So if you go there, this is what the site looks like. It's split into two kind of sections. The Oregon non-competitive Oregon grown and processed food grant, which is what we will be talking about today. And the other part over here, the Oregon Farm to School competitive grant, that's the garden-based, ag-based, or food-based educational opportunities. More on that later. Okay, and as I said, keep checking the website. We will update things periodically as things change, especially for the competitive portion of the grant, which isn't the focus of today's call. So this grant is going to be for 2 separate years, this school year, 2015-16, and next school year, 2016-2017. That's our biennium. I'll talk more about how that's broken down in a bit. For today's agenda, we are going to do an overview, changes from the previous year's grants. There's a few major ones. the application process and timeline, which is very simple, requirements for the application, reimbursement process and requirements, reporting, and questions that you may have. And if you do have any questions, just make sure you type them in the chat box on the lower right-hand side, and I will get to as many as I can at the end of the procedure. And if I'm unable to get to all of them, all questions will be captured in a Q&A document and added to the current Q&A document that's on the website in the resources section of the grants page. So if you've heard about this, the actual name of this, we just refer to it internally, but it was actually authorized through Senate Bill 501, and it directs Oregon Department of Education to award grants for all Oregon school districts for reimbursement of costs incurred in purchasing Oregon food products that meet certain criteria, which is Oregon grown and Oregon processed, and for funding food-based, agricultural-based, and garden-based educational activities. That's the entire whole grant. But I just want to back up a little bit and give you just a 1 or 2 minute history lesson how we got here. We first started this in my first year here at Oregon Department of Ed in 2012. We had our first grant was for just $200,000, and I believe we had about 9 school districts on board for that. And then the biennium we just finished up, we had $1.2 million, and that was one grant for 80% for purchasing Oregon grown or processed food, and the other 20% was for food, garden, and ag-based educational opportunities. But this year, this is the exciting news for this round. We have $3.3 million additional funds that were put into the pot. The 1.2 million that we had for the last biennium is in the governor's budget with no sunset clause, so that rolls over every year. But this 3.3 million is a one-time cash influx added to the 1.2 we already have, bringing our total up to $4.5 million. But this is separated into 2 separate grants, basically. So 80% of that $4.5 million is what we're going to be talking about today. It's a non-competitive grant for all Oregon schools to purchase Oregon-grown and processed food. And the other 20% is a competitive grant for food, garden, and ag-based educational opportunities. For the purpose of today's webinar, we're talking about only the non-competitive food portion of the grant. The competitive portion on the grant, we will be having separate webinars about that one as well. Just keep referring to the website and to the right-hand side as we populate that part of the website with timelines and stuff. We actually have to go through a rulemaking process with the State Board of Education that's delaying the educational portion of that as a bit, but it will not delay this portion that we're talking about today, which is good news. Okay, so for the how to apply for this, the first step is you need to attend a training webinar, which you're doing that now, or if you have a buddy that is doing this in another school district or whatever, there's another opportunity for a live webinar next Friday, which you probably knew about when you clicked on the link to get to this. Or if that is an option, today's webinar or Friday's, you can watch a recorded version of this. But you need to watch this. It'll be 1 hour long. And then there's a very short SurveyMonkey, which we're calling opting in or opting out. But basically, you have to say that you want free money. And so there's a SurveyMonkey process that will happen. And once that happens, a packet, which is basically an email, will be sent to each school food authority, which it will basically have links to an agreement letter that has to be signed and returned to the Department of Education, a baseline data report that will be returned to Department of Ed, and a brand new Excel claim form, different from past years, with we'll have instructions and EGIMS information, which is Electronic Grant Management System, on how to draw down your grant funds. And as soon as we get that stuff back, you can start utilizing your funds. So the timeline for this is we have our webinars Monday and Friday, the first two bullets. And then I said August 31st, the recorded webinar will be posted, but it will be earlier if we can process it. So as soon as we have a viable option of a good webinar from today or Friday, we will post that on there. So there's that part of the timeline. The other thing is, as soon as both webinars are over, or actually as soon as this one is over, I can go upstairs and I can enable the SurveyMonkey link. You will have to, again, attest that you've watched the webinar and trained it, so you can't cheat and go and do that, but I will go to the website and enable the SurveyMonkey link very soon, probably this afternoon, like I said, and then you'll be able to fill out the names, the contact information, and all that stuff. And I've already kind of went over that in excuse me, another slide. Okay, the deadline for this is September 11th to opt in or out of the grant, and we need to hold to that deadline because this, at this point, Department of Ed has determined the allocation calculation for taking total meals for last school year for the entire state. We'll divide that number by the final dollar amount given to this portion of the grant. And so we need to know all the schools that are going to be in or out because we need all those meals captured so we can divide it, and we'll get a cents per meal. And then we'll take that number, and then you can apply that to your meals, your lunches that you had last year that will give you your dollar amount. But we can't know that until we have all the schools participating. So that's why we have to hold to that September 11th deadline. And so what we were thinking of that would be better this year, instead of having just one 2-year grant for food, we were, Department of Ed, we have decided that we would take 50% of the funds for this and set it aside for next year, and so we can have another opt-in time at the same time next year. This will give schools who opt out for whatever reason a chance. They wouldn't have to be out for 2 entire years. They could come back in next year if they want to. But since all the money gets put back into the pot and the law states that it's based on last year's meals, we would have to do a recalculation, and schools would need to spend all of this year's money by the end of this school year. So by June 30, 2016, you would need to spend all your funds, and then we'll go through the same process the following year. So that's a little different from last year. More on the timeline. September 15th, the approval letter process, as described earlier, happens. And then the SFA, as soon as we get the stuff back, the SFA can start utilizing the funds and submitting claims. But we anticipate that will happen around September 15th when we get everybody back in. And then it's not retroactive past this school year. You can utilize funds from the beginning of the school year, including your opening orders. It's retroactive back that far, but not past the school year. So, but you could use you can use all your funds for this school year, including all your opening orders. Okay. And I apologize for going fast. I talk really fast. So the good news is you can go back and listen to this many times and you're for the recording. So so there. Anyway, So the next thing is, like I said, June 30th, 2016, all the funds must be spent for this school year's, and all the funds all the products must be received. And then we start over in the summer next year for the second year of the grant. We'll have a year-end progress report due, just one there at the end of this school year. And then September 30th, 2017, when we come back in, you won't have to do another baseline report for those who did the first year, but you will need to do a reporting final evaluation report due. So for those of you keeping track, there's a baseline data tool, there's a year-end after the first year, and if you opt in the second year, there's just a final report. So there's only really 3 reports, a lot simpler than last year. We had to do a lot more mid-year things and stuff like that. So I'm sure I'll hear cheers about that. Will be good. If a person or a school district just opts in the second year, they will do a baseline data report and a final report at the end of the September 2017. Okay, who can participate? Any public Oregon School Food Authority can participate that participates in meal programs and child nutrition programs, CNP. Charter schools can participate only if they participate in the National School Lunch Program. And the reason why all this is, the way the language in the bill has stated, sorry, we had some feedback issues with the speaker. The reason why we did this, we had some a bill language in the bill that says it's based on National School Lunch Program data. So basically, what we have to have a common denominator to base the award on, and most programs, by and large, participate in the National School Lunch Program, and that's what ODE recognizes and uses to determine many things. And so if you participate in the National School Lunch Program, you can use the funds. Now, you don't have to use those funds just for the National School Lunch Program. You can use those for any program, child nutrition programs is in, like school breakfast, summer lunch, child and adult food care program. But there might be a sticky program if only some individual SFA comes in and is part of like a CACFP only and does not participate in the National School Lunch Program, they wouldn't be eligible. However, if the SFA that does school lunch also does CACFP, they are sure eligible. But the sticking point is National School Lunch Program. So a big part of the application program, and we've had big problems around this each year, is you have to state exactly who your project director is, your fiscal manager, and your agency head. Sometimes we get folks that just put one person down for each. You can't do that. A project director is typically a food service director. Fiscal manager is somebody in charge, usually someone in the business office who deals with grant management, or it could be a grant manager. Agency head is typically a superintendent or business manager. No, I will not inundate those folks with emails, but it's a requirement of EGIMS that they have to be on there. So, so anyway, those that's always a issue, and it's spelled out very clearly in the SurveyMonkey process. For resources, if you go to our website, there's a resource section that will have a lot of stuff on there. It will have the reimbursement worksheet, and the example is all on one form this year. We'll get into that in a bit. The baseline data tool will be there, as well as some of the other things that you will need to the link to some of the things that are going to be required will be on there. Everything will be on the website, so check out the resources section. but also the frequently asked questions document, which have been questions from the last couple of years that still apply, and questions that we received today will be on there. So check out that section. One of the big questions we get is who can fill out the application, and when I say fill out the application, it's take the SurveyMonkey survey. Anyone can do that, but typically the person who has signature authority that can enter into agreements has to be listed on the appropriate section in the application. So yeah, it would be good to let the people know that is in the EGMs, like your superintendent and business manager, that you're applying for the grant, so people aren't blindsided too. Just a word of advice. Requirements for reimbursement. Districts will need to work with vendors to be able to identify which products are Oregon grown and processed. Now, we've been doing this for the last 3 years, so most all of the folks that sell produce, especially the distributors, are aware of this, and it's not new to them. But anyway, you will need to keep invoices on hand to justify the local purchases. No, don't send them to me. I'll tell you what to do with them in a bit, but keep your invoices on hand. Okay. Districts will need to show that they have a system for tracking local purchases in the application process. It's easy if you use our process, which we get, and actually it's a requirement that you use it. But next, this is good news for many of you. We have simplified the process. Last year it was pretty complicated at times, and we got the feedback that we needed to simplify this, and it is super simple this year. So the folks that had to do this last year had to weigh their food and figure out, go to the food buying guide and figure out a portion, and figure out, you know, like we reimburse 15 cents per portion, and that is no longer the case. You simply put the item on the Excel claim form, and you fill out the information, and you email it to me. There's my email address, and you get your money. So it's let's go into that and see how that looks right now. Here, basically, this is a screenshot of what you will get into when you look at the reimbursement worksheet. Basically, there's 2 tabs on the bottom, and it's pointing down below. The first tab that's all in blue, it's the instructions tab, and then the next one, which don't click on it yet, but the next one is the actual claim worksheet, the yellow tab down there. But basically, what you do is you get in here, and you will be, I have some examples of some items put on here to start out with. But basically there's an invoice date. You get your invoice, any item that's Oregon grown or Oregon processed. You know, and again, processed is cut, chopped, frozen, or canned. But so basically, Oregon grown or Oregon processed, you can highlight it on the invoice, and you put the invoice date on there. You say who the vendor is, like if it's Cisco or Duck or whatever. The next column is secondary source. If you know, like sometimes you'll know like it comes from Duck, and if you know it actually comes from a farm, that's great. You can put in there. If you don't, you can leave that blank. But we're hopefully to getting as much information to report back to legislature about the types of Oregon farms that are using. And then basically, if you put down the item, and I'm asking for some help this year because I keep track of every single item that's put in, and there will be tens of thousands of items this year. And if you help me by putting the name of the item first and then the type, and if you format it like this, if you do apples, Fuji, instead of Fuji apples, when we put all of them together, we glue them all together and we sort them, it'll be a hodgepodge. And I'm sure I'll have to tweak it a little bit, but if you do the product first, it will help out a lot. So beef, ground, chub, painted hills, rather than Painted Hills ground beef chub, or same thing, bun hamburger Goody Man, not Goody Man hamburger bun. So again, start with a product first and then go from there. And if if you can just try to help me out there, that will be great. I'm not going to be picky about that. That is more of a suggestion, and it will help me out greatly because it took me probably 100 hours to kind of tweak all that stuff last year when I put it together. So again, we have to take all this stuff and report back to legislature of how much we're increasing Oregon purchasing and things like that. So it's really super helpful for us. Anyway, moving on to the next column, there's a total price for the invoice for that item. So if, for example, up here you have Fuji apples and it was like, I don't know, 3 cases or something, but the total is $35.96, you put that in there, that's what you would get reimbursed for. It's not per portion this year. And then there's a drop down, there will be on the next tab, we'll go into it, but there's a drop down column there that it'll be 3 choices. How does it qualify? It's either Oregon grown, it's Oregon processed, or it's Oregon grown and processed. And I never asked people to identify that last year, and I really should have. I made the assumptions for them, and I went in and tried to guess. And I would much rather have you guys guess when you're ordering, or make that determination. And then the very last column is another favor you could do for ODE. It's estimated pounds for produce items only. We really track produce a lot, and we're not asking you to actually physically weigh cases, but just generally, you probably know if it's a 20-pound case, a 10-pound case, or a 40-pound case, and you could help us out there a lot by putting that in. Don't worry about bread, meat, seafood, grain items at all. Just put NA or leave it blank. But if it's a produce item, could you please tell me how many pounds that you got for that day, like if it was 30 pounds of apples or 10 pounds or whatever. That would be great. Next page. So this is the actual blank sheet of the, just showing you what it looks like. The first page, the instructions were blue, and it's protected, the instructions page, just so you can't really mess it up. This one, I don't believe is protected, but it's this would be where you put the items on. And so you would get a clean copy of this. You would enter the items. I would say that just like I said, just work through each of the columns. You put the items in, and hang on a second. Okay, basically, yeah. What I would say, and I have an example on how to do this on here, but basically you would save it and send it to me, and there's a specific format you can save it for me. And actually, can you back up one? In the big box in the middle, it says when you're complete, item number 2 in the big white box here. If you can cursor over that, there you go. Send it in that format. So like claim number, like 1, like you could put 1 Beaverton, January, and or like the example I say there, 2 Lebanon, October 2015. If you save it like that, and then the next one you would do would be like 3 Lebanon, November 2015. That would help me out a lot. I always rename them anyway when I get them, but if you already get them, that helps me keep them straight. And then you just start with a blank, clean one, and they're available. These are the blank ones are on the website. You can download them to your heart's content, or I always send them out too when requested. But start with a blank one, but just save them in that format, and then send them to me. I double check them, or my assistant will double check them. And then usually within 24 hours, it's released in EGMS for payment. Okay. So for the reimbursement process, this is important. You can claim an item for this grant, but you can't claim that same individual item for a fresh fruit and veggie program or the pilot project for procurement of fresh fruits and veggies, if you're in that. Now, you can participate in all 3 programs at the same time, but you just can't double dip and claim a case of apples for more than one of them, because that is, you can't do that. You just can't. So don't, please. Also, we suggest submitting a monthly claim. We don't have a hard deadline or anything like other programs like FFVP or anything. You can take your time and do one every other month, but we would just ask that you don't put it off. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you're not showing adequate process, I will take funds away. And we have so many school districts to deal with, I won't have the luxury of doing a lot of hand-holding in that respect. I might do 1 or 2 warnings, and then the money goes back into the pot. So I just suggest that school districts do monthly reimbursements. That seems to work very well. But I'll leave that up to you. I just wouldn't wait too long and wait until the spring to start spending funds. Again, this is for all Oregon food, not just fruits and veggies. So you can do baked items. You can do, people have been very, very creative and have done all kinds of things in all areas of the state, and not necessarily just fruits and veggies local. So be creative there. So Oregon food can be, like I said, processed food. You retain the invoice. Processed meat can be grown outside of Oregon, but cut, chopped, frozen, or canned in Oregon. So it can be from somewhere else in the United States, but it at least has to be processed in Oregon to qualify. So when you have that invoice, I would suggest make a copy, because you have your original and you do whatever with your original. But make anything that you have you submit a claim for, keep a copy and put it in a file. Hopefully the vendor can identify it as being Oregon on the invoice. We've had problems with that, and we're not there 100% yet, but at least highlight the item, whatever the item is. Sometimes the vendor will supply a list of available Oregon grown and processed items. If you do, you can save that list and make a copy for the claim file that you submit. That helps a lot too. But anyway, so you'll make a copy of the invoice, you'll highlight the item that matches what is on the claim, and keep the copies of the invoices to support the claim you're submitting in one file with a copy of your claim. So like if you do one for August or September, you put them in a file and put August or September 2015, and then you start a new file for the next claim you do. So when and if you get selected by a review, I'll just grab that file and verify it. So that's the time when, the only time when I look at invoices is during a review process. Now, the review process is separate from the Child Nutrition Program review process. There's no fiscal penalties associated with this. It's just we take care of it within the grant funds, like holding back money or adding if you made a mistake. So it's a different process, and it's not the same as the other review, because there's only one of me and there's the entire state. Everybody has a grant. So if I have the same schedule, I would be reviewing, every hundreds or tens of, a lot. So that's yet to be determined. I'll probably get together with Heidi and we'll find a percentage, and we'll do a random percent, and I will let you know as soon as I can, probably October, if you're selected for a review for this school year. So anyway, when you have your claim, I got off track there a little bit talking about reviews, which is probably coming up later, but the reimbursement process, when you have a claim, you'll send the worksheet, the Excel file worksheet, to me at my email address here. We will look it over, either myself or my assistant will look it over and tell you it's okay to enter the amount, the dollar amount in EGMs. And so basically, you send it to me within 24 hours, I'll say, hey, it looks great, go ahead and enter, you know, your claim was for $1,000, enter $1,000 in EGMs. And then that, boom, that happens really quickly, and we get a notice in EGMs that said it's in, and we click on it, and the payment process happens. And then we will send you when you send us a claim, I'll send you a year-to-date sheet that gives you a year balance. So every time I will give you a balance sheet that gives your past history of all your claims. Review process, I just talked about that. So randomly we will select that. So basically I'm not going to go over this again because I just talked about it. And again, I just really want to emphasize adequate progress. ODE needs to ensure that these funds are spent. We need to report back to the two things. We need to report back to the legislature. It says, gee, thank you for $4.5 million. And it would be really bad if we said, yeah, thanks for all that money. We need more, but nobody spent anything. So we really need everybody to spend anything just because of that. But not only that, because of the, we're splitting it into 2 chunks this year, we need to make sure that we get everything done so we can have a successful year so we could roll it out again next year. So, and again, if adequate process isn't being made, grant funds will be taken back. Yeah, I won't be able to do multiple warnings like I did on past years. Almost done. In getting help for local items, number one, I'd suggest calling your distributor you already use, and you know, you're going to start getting inundated with calls probably, and and like I said, they already know about this because they've been doing grant work before. Your local nonprofits, those of you who are living in the Eugene area, Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, Rogue Valley Farm to School, EcoTrust, just to name a few of some of the nonprofit partners that I work with in the farm to school world. They are very motivated to make sure that you are successful and have some capacity to help, usually. So those local nonprofits, if you need help finding a local nonprofit in your area, call me or send me an email and I could help you get you a relationship with somebody. Food Hub is a really good deal. I clicked on this on my Internet Explorer and it didn't work too well. It worked better for me on Firefox, just saying. But if you click on this link and through the magic of our deal on the next slide, or just click on the next slide, you have to actually, this is what it looks like. This is the Food Hub, and this is our Oregon Harvest for Schools. These are all the main items that Oregon produces. Basically, you have to sign up for this to get to this screen, and which it's free, and basically it says it's an email and a password. But once you do that, you get here, and if you click on something, and it's not on the next slide, I'm just going to talk through this. If you click on something like tomatoes, it'll basically say how many miles away from you, like 50, 100, 200, whatever, and it'll give you tomato farmers that are actually mom and pop farmers in your neighborhood or whatever. So it's a fantastic resource. It's brand new this last year, and it has been rolled out, and not too many people I've talked to know about it still. So it's a really fantastic resource to find fruits and veggies. So I know people think, and most people buy fruits and veggies with this grant, but you can buy other things, and we encourage other Oregon products. But this is a really fantastic resource to go on and find those items. For reporting, I've already told you the dates of when things are going to be due for the first group of people here, it says here. Basically, we have to report back to the legislature and get very good data, and we're cleaning up the report to make it better on your part for filling it out, and for us that we have better data to report too. So we're looking forward to that. I don't believe we have the reporting tool up and ready yet because we're still tweaking it, but it'll be up soon. And then, which brings us to questions. All questions from the site will be posted on the website, on the resources section in the Q&A document. And when I get emails in the next upcoming weeks and months, I still add to the Q&A document and I will update it. And I'm really good about that. So keep referring to the website and it will be on there. Okay, and I think we are at the time when we can entertain questions now. I think we're in a good place for that.
Thanks, Rick. So if you have questions, please use your chat feature located in the lower right-hand side of your screen. And I'll go ahead and mute the line just for a minute so we can have a few questions come in and answer multiple questions at a time. Just hold tight. Great, so we've had a few questions come in. One question is regarding who can participate in the program.
Yeah, as long as you, the school food authority or school district participates in National School Lunch Program, that's what we use to determine the meal factor for determining the grant amount. And so as long as you do school lunches, you can participate. And again, you don't have to use your grant money in just school lunches. You can use it in any child nutrition program meal, but you have to participate in the NSLP last school year to determine the grant amount.
So Rick, just to clarify, if we had a detention center apply and they served NSLP, would they be eligible to participate?
That is correct, they would.
Okay, thank you. Do you have to apply for both the non-competitive and competitive grant?
Absolutely not. You get this part, the non-competitive food part, automatically as long as you opt in and follow the process, but you do not have to apply for the competitive part. But let me just say about the competitive part, school districts can apply and other people will be applying, and the thought is, and the whole reason behind this part, this is a good question, we can give students local food and healthy food and food out of school gardens, and that is terrific, but the real magic happens is when we teach them about the local food. And so that's where the nonprofits come in and they say, well, the cafeteria is buying local apples this week, but we want to teach them about it by bringing them out to the apple orchard and do taste tests and do the education parts. So a lot of them will be, you know, maybe reaching out to you and saying, hey, whenever you're serving some of these things, we want to help teach about it. And those are the folks that typically apply for the competitive grant. But the answer to your question is no, by all means, you do not have to apply for the competitive grant.
And our next question, Rick, is how much money per meal served would be granted?
Yep. We have to determine all of the schools in the opt-in process. We have to take all those meals, all the lunches from last year, and divide that by the grant amount. So we won't know that until all of the schools opt in or opt out of this program. We're anticipating it'll be just under 4 cents a lunch. So if you took, for an idea, for what you think you might get, if you took your school lunches you had last year and had about 4 cents per lunch, that will give you a ballpark estimate. As soon as we know what the dollar amount will be, in your award letter, it'll show you a link where there's a document where you can find out what your actual dollar amount is. The other thing is the actual the money, the $4.5 million, hasn't been put in the budget yet, and they haven't given me the final dollar amount, and so I don't know which way it'll be. It could be a couple $1,000s one direction or other, so I need to be precise on that as well. But we won't know that until all the schools opt out or opt in.
And Rick, can milk expenses be reimbursed under this grant?
They haven't been in the past 3 years, and the reason why that was the whole premise behind this was to increase Oregon grown or processed food, and we can't increase milk because we're pretty much at 100% right now, and it was deemed that, you know, we don't want to, since we can't increase milk, that wasn't a component of this. So as far as I know, that's not going to change. But as of right now, no, it's still not allowed. Good question.
And the next question is, am I correct in that we really only will be given 50% of the 80% of the $4.5 million this year?
Okay, yes. So $4.5 million, 80% of that, I'm backing through that, 80% of that dollar, and then 50% of that, so I'm going the opposite direction, but that is correct. That will be, the entire state will be giving half of the money this year and half of the money next year, correct?
And Rick, and just in clarification of Oregon processed, if our celery comes from California, but is cleaned and chopped by our local produce company located here in Oregon, would that be Oregon processed?
That is correct.
And Rick, when will you know what data we will report in June? That way we can track it as we go instead of backtracking in June.
Yeah, we will know that at the same time when we enable my understanding, the baseline data tool, that the first thing that you fill out, it will mirror that, and so you will know that. That's my understanding. We're still working on it. So.
And Rick, if we have a food service director that contracts with 2 other school districts, will they need to have separate applications for each school district?
That is correct. Each school food authority will have to go into the SurveyMonkey and do one for each school district. They can't combine the funds because the funds get actually, there's a check that gets cut to each school district, and each school district is tracked separately.
Can the same person be the project director for all the districts?
Yes.
So at this time, we have no further questions. We'll go ahead and mute the line. If you have any questions, please use your chat feature located on the lower right-hand side of your screen, and we'd be happy to answer those. So we had a few questions that were submitted. One was a clarification around if you have two districts under one sponsor number. So I'll let Rick elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yep. Sometimes you might have a situation where you have a vended meal account or a school district that rolls into another school district, and they would have probably one agreement number. And in that case, yeah, that one agreement number would be one reimbursement, and so they would roll together. But we have other ones where a school nutrition services director is actually a standalone nutrition service director in one community district, and then a few miles away at another one. That one would have to be separate.
So pretty much, Rick, if they roll into CMP Web under one sponsor number, then it's one application for this grant.
Correct.
If they have two sponsor numbers and two different claims in CMP Web, then they're two different applications.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, and the next question is, if we find that participating in the grant will not be financially viable, can we opt out after opting in?
Yeah, in that case, if something happens either in that situation or we just have somebody that's not performing and not utilizing the funds, what would happen this first year, I would foresee that the money goes just back into the pot and it makes everybody richer for next opt-in process, so the money goes back. For next year, the same will still happen. Yeah, if people can't participate in it for whatever reason, if it's not financially viable or whatever, the money will get redistributed. Yes.
So at this time, we have no further questions. We will host the webinar until 2:30, so I'll go ahead and put the line on mute again. And if you have any questions, please submit those in your chat box.
All right, everybody. I think we don't have any more questions, so we will bring it to an end. I will go up and enable the link for SurveyMonkey very soon, so you can start on the application process. If you, one more, what is this about? If you have any questions and if you still want to reach out to me, please send me an email or give me a call. Thank you very much.